Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. It's a wonderful day here in the world, and I am so thankful to God because He has blessed us to live to see another day, and I am so grateful to Him. Dear God, as I sit before you to speak, I pray to you that my soul you will keep. And if I should die before I finish, I pray to you, dear God, in the name of Jesus, that any outstanding sins will be forgiven. It, amen. Thank you so much for being here with me. We have quite a subject today, talking about that turncoat mentality. Turncoat mentality is something else. Oh my goodness. If I can get it in here, it's turncoat mentality. It's something else. The Lord is good to us, and I am just grateful to Him. And I had everything set up, of course, like I try to do all the time. But there are things sometimes, especially when you're really into it, and something good is going to be learned, which is usually all the time. There happens to be some kind of entity that wants to interfere. We're going to go right ahead. Thanks be to God, and we're going to get into this turncoat mentality. And I pray that your day is going very well. Very well. Mine is. Thankful. What is a turncoat? A turncoat, also known as a turncloak, is a person who shifts allegiance from one loyalty or ideal to another, betraying or deserting an original cause by switching to the opposing side or party. In political and social history, let me get that. I had to turn pages here. Okay. In political and social history, this is distinct from being a traitor, okay, as the switch mostly takes place under the following circumstances. Talking about a turncoat, and what my main question is what makes people turn against their own people and side with the people that don't like their people, which is to say, why do enemies come together? Why do they come together? And there's a saying that the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Enemies of each other, opposing people, opposing countries, opposing parties, political, whatever it is, opposing people who believe a different thing about religion. They will come together, they will band together if they have a common enemy to defeat one set They will come together even though they don't like each other, they don't communicate with each other on a regular basis or even at all. They don't mingle anything, they just don't like each other, they stay away from each other. But if they have a common enemy, they will come together. And so that's what this is all about today. And I think about how could I turn against my whole group, my whole race, my whole ethnic family, go against them and team up with somebody who set out to destroy all of us. And I think about what I was it Mordecai? I think that's Esther's uncle in the Bible. When the king was getting ready because of a person that got mad because he did not bow to him, Mordecai did not bow to him. I think it was Haman that the king had elevated, and oh, he was on his horse, and they were parading him up and down the street. And because Mordecai did not bow to him, one person out of hundreds of people, I presume or assume, one person did not bow to him, and it troubled him to the point of murder, of annihilation of a whole ethnic group of people. He wanted to destroy every one of them. And God had made provisions for one of them to be in the castle in the king's favor, and that was Esther. He had, before she was born, God had already planned for her to be there at that time. So her uncle Mordecai, who was her uncle, but he raised her as his child, he went to her and told her of the plan of annihilation that Haman had cooked up. He had gone to the king and made up this big old story and blew it all out of proportion and had the king to sign and seal the decree. And when the decree was sealed, that was it. It could not be undone. So the king had sealed the decree. As a matter of fact, it gave Haman permission to do as he wanted to do because of the story that Haman had told him. Because of jealousy and envy, he was slighted because one person out of hundreds didn't bow to him. So he wanted to annihilate a whole race of people. God had placed Esther in the palace to be the king's wife, the queen. Favor, favor, favor. So I'm telling you something. God has already made a way of escape for you and me. All we have to do is believe it and receive it. Furnish a life that's pleasing to God. Now, this is point of view. This is point of view. And I'm going to get to this turncoat. I'm going to get to this. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. But getting to this, and I'm going to say this, talking about the turncoats. When you are brown like me, or even if you're considered, what is it, Anglo, we're considered of African descent, even though we have Native American, we have all different bloodlines in us. But predominant, they go by the percentage of the ethnic group, the blood in us. Anyway, we're considered of African descent, basically. What makes What would make me? How could I turn against my own ethnic group and side with another group, ethnicity, which is bent on destroying the ethnic group that I was born into? How can people do that? So, anyway, getting back to Esther, what had happened was, have you heard that before? When the decree was sent out that all the Jews would be killed, and all the land, anybody that killed any of the Jews could have the land that had belonged to the people who were of the Jewish faith. Okay, so Mordecai went to Esther, had an audience with her, and told her what's going on. And he said to her, this is what I want people to hear: just because you're in the palace, be aware and remember this: you are one of us. And don't think that because you're here that you won't be affected too, because it's going to be right at your doorstep, coming in the door and taking hold of you too. That's what he said. Then there's another scripture in there. When we turn coat, or someone turns coat, do they realize they cannot change their appearance? You can use all the, what is that cream that people used to use? I know some people in my family used to use that stuff that make your skin turn light. Uh, I can't even think of the name of it now, but they put that cream on them so that their skin would turn light so they could be more Anglo looking if it were possible. I cannot think of that cream. But anyway, I know some of you that are listening to me know what I'm talking about. But there's a question: can a leopard change his spots? And I'm talking about physical appearance. Can a leopard change his spots? Can a zebra change his stripes? It's not possible. It is not possible. Okay, so I'm going to get on into what I'm here to talk about. Get into here to what I'm here to talk about. And I just want to make sure that I am on the line because I don't see me here. I don't see. Let me make sure because I know I went live. Oh, yes, I am here. But for some reason, I'm monitoring and I don't see it. There it is. Okay. And good evening, good afternoon again. Now I'm going to get into it. You can't change your color. Bleaching cream, that's what they call. They try to bleach themselves to be lighter skinned than what they are. Okay. Or what they were or what they are. Bleaching cream. I think that's what it was. You can't change. You can't change your stature. You can put on all the high heels you want to. When you pull those heels off, you're still the same height. That being said, thank you so much for being here with me. Talking about the turncoat mentality. The turncoat mentality. So let me get over here. And I talked about turncoat. A turncoat, also known as a turn cloak. And so they said this came into being, this term, back in the 1500s. A turncoat, also known as a turn cloak. They said what they would do would turn their coat inside out or their cloak inside out, and you could not tell where they belonged. Okay. A turncoat, also known as a turncloak, is a person who shifts allegiance from one loyalty or ideal to another, betraying or deserting an original cause by switching to the opposing side or party. In political and social history, this is distinct from being a traitor, as the switch mostly takes place under the following circumstances. In groups is the first point here, often driven by one or more leaders. The second point is when the goal that formerly motivated and benefited the person becomes or is perceived as having become either no longer feasible or too costly, even if success is achieved. The third part, talking about what causes people, what are some of the things that causes them to turn coat, to betray their own well-being, I'll put it like that. Remaining an active participant, usually on the same basis, for example, combatant or politician, as opposed to surrender or ceasing activity as a defector. The next point is ostensibly open and honestly intentioned for a cause, as opposed to material personal gain or espionage or treachery. From a military perspective, opposing armies generally wear uniforms of contrasting colors to prevent incidents of friendly fire. Thus, the term turncoat indicates that an individual has changed sides and is his uniform coat to one matching the color of his former enemy. You hear that? Thus, the term turncoat indicates that an individual has changed sides and his uniform or hers, okay, coat, they've changed that to one matching the color of the former enemy. Oh my goodness, there's so much going on, isn't it? There's so much going on in this day and time. It's happening right now. Lord God. Now, the historical context of a traitor, even in a modern historical context, turncoat is often synonymous with the term renegade, a term of religious origins having its origins in the Latin word renegare, to deny. Historical currents of great magnitude have periodically caught masses of people along with their leaders in their wake. In such a dire situation, new perspectives on past actions are laid bare, and the question of personal treason becomes muddled. One example would be the situation that led to the act of abjuration, or placate Van Vereniging, signed on July 26, 1581, in the Netherlands, an instance where changing sides was given a positive meaning. The first written use of the term meaning was by J. Fox in Acts and Monuments. in 1570, one who changes his principles or party, a renegade, an apostate, and that was Ched, 1571. Turncoat could also have a more literal origin. According to the Rotuli Charterum, 1199 to 1216, two barons changed treaty and they uh, changed fealty from William Marshall, first Earl of Pembroke, to King John. In other words, they turned their coats of arms from one lord to another, hence turncoat. So I'm done with the turncoat part right there. So I'm going to go into what I'm talking about today. This is very interesting because I listen and I see where people have literally, people of our ethnicity, our persuasion, in light of, the light is shined on what's happening today, and it is clear, it cannot be mistaken, that there is, let me see what it is, that calls from certain people who are predominantly not considered of African descent, who are trying to take away every bit of law that's in favor of equality, especially between the people of African descent and the Anglo descent. Efforts are being made every day. Things are being written and signed every single day, it seems, to stop the progress of unity here in the United States of America. Deliberately, deliberately trying, attempting to sow discord among or between the ethnic groups here in the United States in order to cause mass confusion and violence. I had said that because I feel it. And last night or yesterday evening, I saw a Catholic priest say the exact same thing. I heard Roland Martin say the exact same thing. The aim is to sow discord among the races, between each other, to cause civil, uh, ethnic unrest here in the United States just because someone is hungry for power and is trying everything within the limited power, which seems not to be limited, but it really is, because God is yet in charge, trying to do everything to start civil unrest, to try to get credit for causing it to cease. But it's not going to be like that particular person thinks it's going to be. It's not going to be that way. And people need to realize this. I want absolute power. I am the one with all the power. I call the shots. And I'm nerve enough to say it too. I call the shots. Whatever I say goes. I will have it typed up, and I will sign this, and that will bring it into law, which is absolutely not the proper way to do things according to the Constitution of this United States of America. But it seems that everything is null and void. But please, please, I'm going to get into this, okay? Don't be discouraged. Don't be dismayed. There is a time and a season for everything. Seasons change, okay? Seasons change. Okay, now let me get into this. Why do enemies band together against one common enemy? Why do enemies band together? Hello, Carol. Hi. Thank you for being with me. Why do enemies band together against one common enemy? And this is, where did I get this from? I think most of it's AI, yeah, AI mode. Uh, Enemies may band together against a common enemy primarily due to a principle known as the, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. They say that's a principle. And that's why enemies gather together for a common goal against an enemy. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. So, this alliance is typically a pragmatic and temporary arrangement driven by mutual self interest and the pursuit of a shared immediate goal, overcoming a greater threat. Do you hear that? When people are working together, they are enemies and they come together against someone that neither one of them likes, they're afraid of. There's a threat there. There is a threat there. That is why so many things are happening today because of fear of losing, fear of being overshadowed. But it's still happening, okay? No one, nowhere. It might seem that they have the victory over everything that's going on. It might seem that they are having their way. But let me tell you something. I'm going to say it again. Seasons change. Now, sometimes it seems that when we're in the winter, we might have some days that seem like spring days and maybe summer days, but it's still winter. But then also in the scriptures, it tells us that in the last days, we won't be able to tell one season from the other. But it didn't say that the seasons won't change. Understand that? They might feel alike, they might look alike, but seasons change. Winter is winter, summer is summer, autumn is autumn, which is fall, and spring is spring. They might look alike and feel alike, but they are different. Okay? So, here is why enemies come together to band against a common enemy: survival and self preservation. I want everybody, please remember this. And you can always go back and watch this. It's entitled The Turncoat Mentality. And I am concerned about these people who are turning against their own, not for right, not for right. It's a different thing when you stand up for right and you agree with another side that you don't usually agree with for right. But this is not the situation, okay? Survival and self preservation. Why is the enemy of my enemy my friend? The primary motivator is often survival. When faced with an overwhelming or existential threat from a common enemy, former adversaries may realize that their individual survival is better secured through cooperation and continued conflict. And I want to say this, all of those people in executive positions, in what we call leadership roles, people who have offices in politics and in the governing body, all of those people, even in the same party, all of those people, they don't like each other. Some of them cannot, what we say, stand each other, but they will band together for a common goal. And we see that happening in order to destroy and annihilate a common enemy, which they consider a common enemy. It's a threat to them. Survival and self preservation, that's one of the reasons that they come together against for a common cause. When faced with an overwhelming or existential threat from a common enemy, which they consider an enemy, former adversaries may realize that their individual survival is better secured through cooperation than continued conflict. Next is strategic advantage. Take note of this. By pooling resources, intelligence, and military strength, the combined forces of former enemies can create a more formidable opposition against the common threat, increasing their chances of victory. Next, temporary expediency. And I want to tell you something, there's always a way to get in there and turn this around. And I won't say it out online, but there's always a way. It's happening. It's happening right now. Temporary expediency is another reason. These alliances are usually not based on genuine camaraderie or a resolution of past grievances. Instead, they are a temporary measure to address a specific, pressing danger with the understanding that once the common enemy is dealt with, the precious rivalries may resurface. Isn't that something? They hate each other. They were destroying each other, attempting to destroy each other. But then here is someone that neither one of them wants the best for, and they will come together and bond with each other temporarily to try to destroy the one that neither one of them likes. Then here's a shared goal. The presence of a common enemy provides a clear, uniting objective or unifying objective that temporarily overshadows existing differences and animosities The enemy of my enemy is my friend. They are temporary measures to address specific pressing danger with the understanding that once the common enemy is dealt with, the previous rivalries may resurface. Then the next point here is they have a shared goal. The presence of a common enemy provides a clear, unifying objective that temporarily overshadows existing differences and animosities. And when you, this is something to really take notice of. I know there are people who are on neutral sides, and they're neutral, and they might be a friend of someone who doesn't care for you, or someone, God forbid, you don't care for or want to keep company with. You don't have to hate a person not to want to be around them, okay? You don't have to do that. But then, if this person who is your acquaintance or your friend, classified as your friend or perceived to be your friend, is negatively talking about the person who seems to be your enemy, rival, however, those people just don't like you, or you might not like those people. And then this friend is talking about them negatively and all that. And then you see them with this person, or you know of their acquaintance or their relationship with that person that they've been talking about negatively to you, and yet they're together now at this point, but they're still supposed to be your friend, okay? But now they're with this person and what we call skinning and grinning like they are their best friend. You have to be careful. You have to be really, really, really careful. And Mama would say you have to feed them out of a long handled spoon. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Be very careful. Reduce the risk. When people band together against a common enemy, it could be for reduced risk. Fighting a common enemy together can reduce the individual risk and cost for each party concerned to facing the threat alone. Next, it tells us to dive deeper into the AI mode. Next, we're going to talk about questions that I asked about what is the survival rate, or how long do these relationships last? And AI is telling me it's hard to uh, really put a number on it because it's very a complex question that I asked them. Touches on psychology, sociology, political science, and history. Well, there is no simple universal statistics on siding with the enemy. We can examine the concept through different lenses and draw some conclusions. And I asked what makes people turn against their own people and side with the, how should I'm using the word enemy today. Anyone that wants to do you harm is your enemy. I really believe that. I really believe that. And so there are other people out there like that. And they, whether they like each other or not individually, if you are a threat to them, they will come together with the intention of destroying you. Oh, yes, it happens every day. It's happening now. So I want to know, why do people do this? What's the psychological um, explanation. What happens to these people? What would make me turn totally against my, and I say my people, which I love everybody because we're all mixed up. We are a rainbow. None of us is pure anything. Okay? We have to understand that. But my dominant ethnic background is of African descent. And then there's Native American, then there's Caucasian. All of that's in me and in you too, okay? So, to most, we're not totally, we, our ancestors came from Africa, but we didn't come from Africa. But we have the blood in us. The lack of concrete statistics. It's important to understand why precise statistics are not readily available. Siding with the enemy is not a clearly defined, universally agreed upon action. It can range from active military collaboration to providing aid or intelligence to simply expressing sympathy to an opposing group's perspective. Is often a label applied by the in group to members who dissent, and the definition of enemy is also highly fluid and depends on context. And that is so true because everybody doesn't define in their minds what an enemy is. Different perspectives on what an enemy is. And it depends on the situations also. So the definition of enemy is highly fluid and depends on context. So, for example, a political opponent might be labeled an enemy by their rivals, but this is very different from a soldier defecting to a foreign military during wartime. Okay? Two, psychological and sociological perspectives. Instead of hard numbers, researchers often study this phenomenon through the lens of defection or collaboration in social dilemmas. These studies, often using game theory models like the prisoner's dilemma, reveal some key insights. And here's one of those: self interest versus group interest. Why people side with the enemy. Why do people side with the enemy against their own people? I'm just going to leave it like that. With that, what I said, people siding against their own ethnic group. My goodness, that's terrible. The core tension in social dilemmas is the conflict between what is best for the individual and what is best for the group. So this is talking about self interest versus group interest. Why do people side with the enemy? Defection, and this means siding against the group, can offer a higher payoff for the individual, especially if others continue to cooperate. Then the next point is motivations for defection. A variety of factors can drive a person to side against their own people, including, and I understand when people are being oppressed in, like in another country, we have people who have defected to the United States to live a better life because they've been oppressed. Uh, and then I know we probably have people who defected from here too because of oppression over here. So, perceived injustice is next. Motivation for defection. A variety of factors can drive a person to side against his own people, including perceived injustice, a belief that the in group's actions are morally wrong. This is a powerful motivator. The next is personal gain. This can be financial, a promise of power, or simply a belief that their life will be better with the other side. And I think that's the, and we go into disillusionment. We go into that because so many people are disillusioned. Well, you come over here and I'll make sure you get this position and you get that position. Oh, yeah, disillusionment, losing faith in the group's goals, leaders, or values. Then there's social isolation, feeling disconnected or ostracized from their own people. Next is fear and coercion, being forced to collaborate under duress. Next, impact of group dynamics, the presence of strong social norms, trust, and the threat of punishment for defection can stabilize cooperation within a group. However, if trust erodes, or if the group is perceived as being ineffective or corrupt, defection can become more common. And that's what I was talking about when people leave a certain country. Number three, historical and political context. History is filled with examples of individuals and groups who sided with what was considered the enemy at the time. And you know, I'm about history now. When I learn better, I do better. It's not only his story, it's her story too. It's our story, okay? Not just his. And the definition of his story, his means male, okay? Now that's the definition. I looked it up. Okay. History is filled with examples of individuals and groups who sided with what was considered the enemy at the time. Political divisions. In politically polarized societies, people can feel that the opposite political party is so antithetical to their values that they view them as an enemy. This can lead to family estrangement and social rifts. Next, wartime collaboration. During times of war, collaboration with an occupying force is a well documented phenomenon. The motivations for this are often complex and can include survival, self interest, or a genuine belief that the occupying power is a better choice for the future. The aftermath of such conflicts often involves severe retribution against collaborators as they are seen as traitors. Have to be careful. You have to think this thing through. Some people do not care. I'm going over to the other side. It'll be better for me over there. A leopard can't change his spots. A zebra can't change his stripes. Nobody can change their stature. You can do artificial adjustments if you wish, but your original, your natural stature is always going to be the same. And just because you're over on that side or over on this side, siding against your own best interest, doesn't mean that when the conclusion of the whole matter is you won't be affected. Then the next part here is duration number 4, duration and outcomes. The question of whether siding with the enemy lasts long also lacks a simple answer. It depends really on the specific circumstances because it's not always going to be that. You better be careful. Better be careful. Beware of the pat on the back. It just might hold you back. Political shifts. Next, if the enemy becomes the new government or dominant power, those who sided with them may be rewarded and integrate into the new system. Oh, that's my good old girl. That's my good old boy. Yeah. hmm Reconciliation is next. In some cases, with societal healing and reconciliation, individuals who collaborate or who collaborated may be forgiven or reintegrated, though this is often a long and difficult process. Because how can you trust them? How can they ever be completely trusted? Remember when Paul was converted? I'm going back to the scripture. People were afraid of him. They were still afraid of him because of his traveling, his, oh, punishing the saints of God, breathing and threatening. People were still afraid of him, but God had changed him. But I guarantee that some people, up to the day that they transitioned into eternity, never ever really trusted Paul. It's just the way it is in life. Social ostracism. For many, this is one of the reasons that for many, the decision to side with an enemy leads to permanent social ostracism from their original community. You hear that? They may be forever labeled a traitor, even if their actions were seen as justified from their perspective. Then there are personal consequences of siding with the enemy. The psychological and social costs of such a decision can be immense. Betrayal of one's own people can lead to guilt, regret, and a lack of belonging in either group. And believe, I believe that that is the mindset of anyone who sides with the enemy. I don't believe that they have any peace of mind. Siding with somebody who wants to hurt you as a group of people, how can you have peace of mind? In conclusion, while we can't provide a chart, this is they're talking to us about, because I did ask the percentage of those um, who, the success of those who side against their own group of people. What is their success rate? How long are they able to hold out in the group and all of that? I wanted specifics, but it's impossible, impossible. So they're telling me, in conclusion, while I'm telling you, we can't provide a chart of statistics on siding with the enemy. The available research and historical evidence suggests that it is a complex and multifaceted behavior driven by a combination of psychological, social, and situational factors. It is not an uncommon occurrence in times of deep division, and its duration and consequences are highly dependent on the outcome of the conflict and the social context. So when it's time to come back home, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. Individuals, which is the next point here, may side against the majority due to a belief in tyranny or majority, which is when a large group uses its power to oppress a smaller group. This behavior can also be a result of majority influence or minority influence. This is a reminder. In today's webcast, I did not know that I had spent all this time. Oh my goodness. This is a conclusion anyway, so would you allow me to finish this, please? I'm going to finish this. When they side with the enemy, this is very important. I wanted to know, are there numbers, statistics on how many people actually stay over there, how many are successful siding with the enemy, how many come back, and all that? But it's complex, it cannot be measured. Cannot be measured. It's like it's a combination of psychological, social, and situational factors. Individuals may side against the majority due to a belief in tyranny of the majority, which is when a large group uses its power to oppose a smaller one. This behavior can also be a result of minority influence, where a smaller group's consistent and confident stance on an issue can lead others to re examine their own beliefs and adopt the minority viewpoint. In some cases, people might feel a specific policy or action, while beneficial to the majority, is morally wrong or harmful to a minority, leading them to oppose it for ethical reasons. And see, and I mentioned that in the beginning. When the group, something's going on, the group is doing wrong, then you don't have to agree with that. You want to side with right. So you want to be on the side of right. And there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Okay, but it depends on the degrees you take in order to side with the opposite side. Okay, you can stand up for right, but you don't have to desert your people as a whole. Okay, now The next is a concept known as self defeating behavior occurs when people act against their own best interests. This is where I wanted to get to. Often due to psychological factors like a need for control, a desire to avoid pain, or a feeling of helplessness. It can stem from past trauma, a distorted view of reality, or an inability to recognize what is truly beneficial in a conflict. What's truly beneficial, I should have ended that. In a conflict, an individual may align with an opponent for various complex reasons, including seeking validation, a sense of belonging, or a misguided belief that the opposition's goals are more achievable or just. This can also be a form of appeasement where a person believes they can minimize harm by siding with a more powerful entity. Thank you so much. So that helps me out some in understanding why people side against their own people with the enemy. This is a very serious, serious topic, and we will probably go through some more of this one day. I love you so much, and I pray and trust that the Lord will continually keep you and that you will want to be continually kept by the Lord. These things are good for us, and I thank God for blessing us to have access to these areas here and to this information because we need it. We most certainly, certainly do. And tomorrow evening, tomorrow at 1 p.m. afternoon, is uh, scheduled at 1 p.m. from the Biblical Files of Dr. Mack. So please join Dr. Mack tomorrow, God willing, at 1 p.m. And again, on Thursday is Point of View with Ms. Shirley Polk. On Friday is the Mother's Board Inc. On Saturday at 7:39 p.m. is Greater Gospel Temple Church of Praise and Worship and Inspiration of God Ministries. Saturday evening Bible lesson session. On Sunday is Greater Gospel Temple Church of Praise and Worship and Inspiration of God Ministry Sunday morning manna from heaven. And if you haven't had a chance, go to TikTok, on Facebook, on Instagram, and watch my video. I ordered some towels and I got an order by mistake, but it is the order that I needed. And so I'd like for you to see that video. Okay. All right. I love you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being here. And don't forget Monday mornings, 5 minutes of prayer at 7 a.m.